Building revolutionary spaces when healing meets cultural identity. Have you ever walked into a room and immediately felt like you didn't belong? That subtle but unmistakable feeling that this space, this experience wasn't designed with you in mind? I recently had the profound privilege of interviewing Siarra Divine for the Pink Parachute Diaries podcast. And let me tell you, this conversation transformed how I understand the intersection of wellness, cultural identity, and entrepreneurship. Siarra Divine isn't just creating businesses, she's igniting a revolution by building culturally competent wellness spaces that honor the experiences of Black and Brown communities. At just 35 years old, she has already spent over 15 years in healthcare, witnessing firsthand the gaps in culturally informed care, and has emerged as a visionary leader who refuses to accept the status quo. Healing is a revolutionary act, especially when it's rooted in culture, community, and connection. These words from Siarra Divine stopped me in my tracks. They crystallize something many of us have felt but struggle to articulate, that true healing cannot happen in spaces that erase our cultural identities. Think about it. How many wellness spaces have you encountered that genuinely reflect the diversity of human experience, that honor ancestral wisdom alongside modern practices, that recognize the unique challenges faced by marginalized communities? Not many, right? The wellness industry has become a $4.5 trillion global market. Yet the vast majority of these spaces remain strikingly homogeneous in both their aesthetics and approaches. This is precisely the gap that Ciara Divine identified. And rather than simply lamenting it, she decided to fill it. She made a revolutionary decision that would impact countless lives. When I couldn't find the space, I built one. Those words contain multitudes. They speak to the entrepreneurial spirit, yes, but more importantly, they speak to the radical act of creating what you need when the world hasn't provided it. They speak to the power of transforming personal pain into community healing. In a world that often tells marginalized communities to simply adapt to spaces not designed for them, Ciara's approach represents a profound reframing. What if, instead of contorting ourselves to fit into existing structures, we built new ones that honor our full humanity? Let me share with you a story that illustrates the transformative power of Ciara's work. A community leader, someone deeply committed to serving their neighborhood, but struggling to translate that passion into sustainable impact. Approach Ciara with a challenge that might sound familiar to many of you. How do you build a brand that attracts meaningful partnerships while staying true to your mission? How do you translate community work into a cohesive identity that resonates with both your audience and potential collaborators? Many consultants might have advised this leader to water down their message to make it more palatable for mainstream consumption. But Ciara took a radically different approach. She recognized that this leader's cultural identity wasn't something to minimize, it was their greatest strength. She implemented a strategic branding process centered on authentic storytelling and cultural relevance. She encouraged the community leader to delve deeper into their roots, to excavate the cultural wisdom that informed their work, and to build their brand around these authentic foundations rather than despite them. The results, before they even completed the full branding process, this community leader secured their first partnership under their new brand, God's Work. Think about that for a moment. Midway through the process, before all the T's were crossed and I's dotted, the authentic foundation they were building already began attracting exactly what they needed. This isn't just good branding. This is what happens when you align purpose with presentation, when you honor cultural identity rather than diluting it for mainstream appeal. It's a powerful testament to what becomes possible when we stop asking, how can I fit into existing spaces? And start asking, how can I create spaces that honor who I truly am? But Ciara Divine's impact extends far beyond individual success stories. Her work addresses a systemic issue in wellness spaces that has gone unacknowledged for far too long. Most wellness spaces weren't built with us in mind. Another powerful statement from Ciara that cuts to the heart of exclusion in wellness industries. When she says us, she's speaking specifically about Black and Brown communities, communities whose healing traditions have often been appropriated while their contemporary wellness needs remain unaddressed. Think about what happens when you enter a space where the music, the aesthetics, the language, the healing modalities, everything feels foreign to your cultural experience. How can true healing occur when you're constantly translating, constantly code switching, constantly leaving parts of yourself at the door? This recognition led to perhaps Ciara's most revolutionary act, creating culturally competent wellness spaces specifically designed for melanated communities. These aren't just places to practice yoga or meditation. These are transformative environments where people can heal authentically, where they feel, in Ciara's words, seen, safe, and supported. The impact of such spaces cannot be overstated. Imagine walking into a room and instead of that familiar feeling of not belonging, experiencing an immediate sense of recognition. Imagine healing practices that honor rather than erase your cultural identity. Imagine wellness that doesn't require you to fragment yourself, leaving your cultural identity at the door in order to participate. This is what Ciara Divine has created. And in doing so, she's demonstrated that cultural competence isn't just a nice to have in wellness spaces, it's essential for true healing in marginalized communities. When people enter these spaces, something profound happens. Shoulders relax, breath deepens, defenses lower. The energy previously spent navigating cultural disconnection can now be directed toward actual healing. But how did Ciara arrive at this intersection of wellness and cultural advocacy? Her journey began in healthcare, where she witnessed firsthand the gaps in culturally informed care for Black and Brown communities. Rather than accepting these limitations, she leveraged her extensive experience to develop a unique cultural wellness framework. At 35, she successfully rebranded herself as Ciara Divine, creating a distinctive identity as both a wellness curator and brand strategist. This dual expertise allows her to help others reconnect with who they are, reclaim their narrative, and build brands rooted in purpose. Do you see the pattern here? The revolutionary act isn't just in healing, it's in reclaiming narrative. It's in refusing to accept spaces that weren't designed for you. It's in building alternatives that honor the fullness of human experience. And here's where Ciara Divine's work becomes particularly relevant for everyone, regardless of your background. We all inhabit spaces that were designed with certain assumptions, certain people, certain experiences in mind. Some of us benefit from those assumptions, others are harmed by them, but all of us have the power to question them and, if necessary, to build alternatives. This is the essence of what I learned from my conversation with Ciara Divine. Her approach bridges wellness and business in a way that centers authenticity and cultural competence. She demonstrates that personal narrative and cultural identity can become powerful foundations for authentic business development. Let me share another example that illustrates this principle in action. After experiencing the lack of cultural competence in traditional wellness spaces, Ciara identified the need to create environments that honor the unique experiences of Black and Brown communities. This wasn't just a business opportunity, it was a healing necessity. She successfully launched a brand that serves as both a business and a healing movement. The Siarra Divine brand has become synonymous with safe, transformative environments where melanated individuals can heal authentically. Her work is literally changing the wellness landscape by demonstrating that cultural competence is essential for true healing. Think about the courage this requires to look at established industries and say, this doesn't serve me or my community. So I'm going to build something different, to risk failure in service of a vision that few others can see, to trust that if you create an authentic space, people will come because they've been waiting for it, perhaps without even knowing what they were waiting for. This is the revolutionary potential of entrepreneurship when it's guided by purpose rather than profit alone. When we build businesses that address genuine needs, especially needs that mainstream markets have ignored, we don't just create economic opportunities, we create possibilities for healing, for connection, for transformation. And isn't that what we're all seeking in one way or another? Spaces where we can be fully ourselves, communities that honor rather than erase our complexities, healing that acknowledges all aspects of our identities. So, what can we learn from Ciara Divine's example? How can we apply these principles in our own lives and work? First, we must begin identifying the spaces in our lives that lack cultural competence. This requires honest assessment. Where do you feel fully seen and supported? Where do you feel like you have to leave parts of yourself at the door? What spaces claim to be for everyone, but actually center certain experiences while marginalizing others? Second, inspired by Ciara's example, we must either seek out culturally affirming alternatives or begin creating our own. This approach applies whether you're building a business, seeking healing, or creating community initiatives. Remember, when I couldn't find the space, I built one. Third, we must recognize that authentic branding isn't about marketing tactics. It's about aligning your external presentation with your internal purpose. As Ciara demonstrates through her work with community leaders, when you build a brand rooted in authentic storytelling and cultural relevance, you attract exactly the partnerships and opportunities you need. I want to challenge you today to become revolutionary builders in your own right. The world doesn't need more people who simply accept spaces that weren't designed for them. The world needs more people with the courage to create alternatives, to build spaces where healing can happen authentically, where cultural identity is honored rather than erased, where community and connection form the foundation of transformation. This isn't just about wellness, this is about justice, this is about dignity. This is about creating a world where no one has to fragment themselves to receive care, to build a business, to participate in community. So I ask you, what space are you being called to build? What gap are you uniquely positioned to fill? What would become possible if you stopped trying to fit into spaces that weren't designed for you and instead created spaces that honor your full humanity and the full humanity of your community? The revolution begins with this recognition. You don't have to accept the spaces you've been given. You have the power, the wisdom, and the right to build something different, something better, something that truly serves. As Ciara Divine has shown us, when we build spaces rooted in culture, community, and connection, we don't just heal ourselves, we create possibilities for collective transformation. And in a world as fractured as ours, what could be more revolutionary than that?